Privyet, salut tout le monde, and welcome. Alright, so we're gonna continue with the series, and we're just gonna go over Hellenism, okay? One world and one culture. So, the reason we're gonna talk about this is because there seems to be like confusion, uh, with all the attacks on Christianity, and again, I don't blame people for hating Christianity. Like when I see modern Christianity today, my biggest opponents, I would say, are Christians, are mainstream Christianity. So, and my channel is very much about refuting modern Christianity. So I don't blame a lot of, people trying to, like when you go into a church, like I've never been able to find a church. I've been kicked out of almost every church I've ever gone into. Or politely asked to leave because my views don't, the way that I look at the scriptures and then compare it with history, it's not welcomed in most churches. So I originally was very like sympathetic towards a lot of people gravitating towards like neopaganism, but now what I find is we're dealing with a lot of liars in the neopagan movement. And so it's a natural thing. Like if Christianity's failing, you can't really blame these people for trying to find like an alternative to Christianity. So they're going to revert back to paganism, okay? But I don't think they know what they're talking about. And again, like I don't blame them for hating mainstream Christianity, but it's kind of like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. The problem isn't the baby, it's the bathwater, right? So the problem is you're going to get a lot of these neo-pagans, and they're going to point, oh, look at the Romans, weren't they great? And look at the ancient Greeks, weren't they amazing? And that's not to say they weren't in their own way. There's a lot to admire about early Rome, and no one could deny the accomplishments of the Greeks, but the surrounding culture, the overall culture. And what gets lost is these neo-pagans claim to be nationalists, and the Hellenistic world was anything but nationalist. The Roman world, by the time Rome had expanded into the later Republic, or when it became an empire with the Caesars, it was anything but nationalistic. The Romans would have wiped you out. So would the Greeks if you didn't bow down to their ways. So you can't to romanticize over the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans and holding a nationalist banners like, oh, look at how amazing us Europeans used to be. It's like these cultures would have wiped you out. Like every, whether it's Boudica in Britain, or Arminius the German, or who's the other good one? The Dacians, right? And then the Lusitanians in Portugal. All these people were wiped out. Caesar Augustus, I don't even know how many tribes Caesar Augustus wiped out. Anyone who defied Rome, in a sense, right? And then, you have Arminius, a German prince, slaughtered 3 Roman legions, lured Varus, Quintilius Varus, he was actually the governor of Syria during the birth of Christ, and he was lured into the Teutoburg forest where, this German betrayed the Romans and wiped out 3 legions in a span of 2 or 3 days. And so the nations that Rome had conquered were not they were not happy with Rome, a lot of them, to the point where like you have a German resistance. So the Pax Romana, the great Roman peace of Augustus, is an illusion. Augustus had to kill a lot of people to obtain the Pax Romana. Okay? And he also killed 300 senators, and including Cicero, if you know the great lawmaker Cicero, the defender of the Republic. Not only did Augustus kill Cicero, he cut off his head and his hands and nailed them to the Senate. And as a warning that anyone speaks or writes against the Republic, that's what's going to happen to you. So that's Roman peace. Roman peace is, and that's not to say maybe the senators deserved it. It's kind of like, America today. Maybe, the Russian nobles in Russia during the Bolshevik takeover. I'm an anti-Bolshevik. I'm against the Bolshevik Revolution. But I can definitely tell you that the Russian nobility deserve what they got. Okay? And so it's like nobody's right if everybody's wrong kind of thing. Okay? And we could talk about that another time. But so we're going to just go into, it's not so much we're going to just talk about Hellenism. We're going to talk about the Hellenistic world and how degenerate the ancient Greeks were in comparison to what we are to. Like, we are now regressing back to the Hellenistic world. Like, I don't know why any pagan nationalist would be against the LGBTQ movement or the earth worship and paying taxes on climate change. It's or the drugs being pushed and the drunkenness and the endless pointless wars. What we're living through right now is the ancient Greek world and the ancient Roman world, where they were degenerates. They were all about worshiping the earth and material. They were constantly engaging in pointless wars, destroying their economy, and even conquering, the same lands we're trying to conquer right now in the East, right? So the point, that the irony in this video is what the Jews and Freemasons, like let's say the elites, right? What they're pushing on us right now, this degenerate world, this degenerate lifestyle, and all of it's like me worship Mother Earth, worship the material world. What they're forcing on us right now is what the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans forced on the Jews 2,000 years ago. And ironically, this is probably like the only time where I can actually point at the Jews as the heroes in history, where the Jews are actually the nationalists. The Jews are the one holding up the Bible. The Jews are the one removing the Greeks from their land and removing the sexual immorality, the earth worship, the degeneracy, and the Jews are in a sense the good guys. And then all you have to do is reverse everything. Everything that they're pushing on us today is exactly what the European Greeks, understand that about the ancient Greeks, that they are the first time European people are actually going to stand as masters of the known world. Okay? And when the Europeans rose up to be the masters of the world, they were degenerates. Like, pedophilia was legal. It was protected by law. Men had the right, the noble Greeks had the right to have sex with young boys, okay? Technically 12 to 18 years old, okay? And we don't know if it goes younger because of how they calculated youth. It wasn't so much based on your age as much as your development, okay? So like you might pass into another age category just because you can grow a full beard, right? So there's a general idea, but it's not so ironclad. So when you get to the Maccabean revolt, the Jews here are actually the ones, what you're seeing today. It's like it's just, it would be like us protesting against like all this liberal wokeness that's what the Jews during the Maccabean revolt were actually protesting against. Okay, but now the roles are reversed. They're the ones forcing the stuff, encouraging this in our lands now. Okay, and so yeah, we're gonna get through this because we really need to get to the fall of the West and the curses of Moses, because with everything going on right now in Iran and Israel, these are really scary times, and history is definitely repeating itself. Because guys, we're gonna talk about this more in detail. But understand that we are repeating the same mistakes in ancient history. We have invaded the lands beyond the Euphrates. Okay, we have set up our outposts, and we have our client states, our client kingdoms. We have Kuwait and Qatar, and Dubai, the Emirates. We have Egypt. We've got our outposts, no different than the Romans did. And then the Romans kept trying to take Parthia. Okay, and Parthia is Afghanistan, Iran, and Iraq. And the Greeks did it. Alexander did it, but it was short-lived. It's no different than, we can say, oh, we conquered, Iraq. Like, I remember, I'll tell you guys a story. When I was in my final year in Army Cadets, so I was 18, turning 19, and I had an Iraqi Army Cadet in Canada. And his last name was Mirza. And I'll never forget this kid. And I remember that, I'm pretty sure, so this would probably be close to 2004. So I think we must have definitely already taken Baghdad by then. Like, we had already pushed, the Americans we'd conquered a lot, okay? Like, it was very quick for us to conquer Iraq and Afghanistan. But again, to conquer and to hold are two completely different things. And I remember this kid, because it was really weird, because here's an Iraqi kid wearing a Canadian Army uniform, and he started talking to me, and I could tell that his loyalty was obviously to Iraq and to Islam. He's wearing a Canadian uniform, but he's rooting for the other team. And I remember thinking in my head, like, I'm a pretty stupid kid at this point. I'm like 18 years old. And I remember, like, looking at him like, come on, kid, like, the war's already over. We've taken it. It's done. It was, and he started repeating stuff from his father. And I can't believe how right his father was. It's like, it's not about taking the capital. It's not about conquering the country. It's about, can you hold it? Can you actually make a difference there? And I'm going to tell you guys something. This is unconquerable land. The Greeks couldn't do it. The Romans couldn't do it. And we've now tried to do it. And we've just been, like, every Roman general who tried to take these lands either never came back at all or had to retreat, in humiliating defeat. The Greeks took it, but they couldn't hold it. And we're going to go over that. And here we are making the same mistake. So, and when we go over the curses of Moses, because a lot of people don't realize what exactly has happened to us. We are now almost $40 trillion in debt. $40 trillion in debt. And to put that into perspective, every American alive right now, if you have a child and you're an American and your child is instantly born with about $114,000 worth of debt. $113,000 worth of debt. Imagine being born. You were just born. You didn't make any of these decisions, but you're born with that debt. That's what now that's not the interest. When we apply interest, say over 30 years, it's closer to $250,000. Every American citizen is $250,000 in debt right now. And then when you factor in that the baby boomers are all going to die, our birth rates are really low, it's actually closer to $500,000 every one of us are in debt, every American, to pay for these wars. And when you study who paid for these wars and you look at the domestic and the foreign investments, and that's very deceptive. But we're going to go over this in the curses of Moses because this is what God promises you. We owe foreign countries and foreigners. We didn't finance the war, guys. It's not like in World War II where the government raised up war bonds. There were no war bonds, where it keeps the money in the country and all the interest generated goes to the citizens. No. Even the domestic banks in America that funded the war are owned by foreigners. So we borrowed this money to go to war. China holds a lot. And what's happened is we're paying the Chinese interest, okay, interest back. for the money they lent us to go to war. We blew up the countries, and now we're paying the Chinese back with interest. And the Chinese, who never fired a bullet, never sent a soldier, they're now using the interest money from us to rebuild Afghanistan and Iraq, and now they're getting all the resources and they're getting all the money. So not only did they pay us to go fight these people, we're paying them interest, and now they're taking the interest and rebuilding these countries and getting all the resources and making all the deals with these people. And our children are now stuck with the bill. Okay, and so anyways, we're going to talk about that in the next video, but it's really sick, twisted stuff. All right, okay, so I also want to talk about, I did write a book. This is the book, Son of a God, Born in the Shadows of Empire. Divi Filius, Son of a God, or Son of the Deified. And so this book is about the Nativity, the birth of Christ. It's about defending the Gospel of Luke and defending the book of Acts, okay? And it contrasts Caesar Augustus with Christ. So Caesar Augustus is the Caesar that Christ was born under, and Caesar Augustus called himself Son of a God. If you look at all the coins during his era, they all said Divi Filius. And so this book is a polemic. It's an argument. I'm arguing against mainstream academia, pretty much showing it's either their incompetence or it's a conspiracy to cover up what the Bible actually says. So just to give you, if you go to Luke 2, verses 1 to 4, and it says, a decree went out, there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. This taxing was first made when Quirinius was governor in Syria. And so what they do is they point at the word taxing and Quirinius, and they say, well, that taxing didn't happen until 6 AD, 10 years after Herod the Great died. Therefore, Luke is a mentally retarded man. He's a terrible historian, and he's placing the birth of Christ under Quirinius during the taxation of 6 AD. And now, right away, I'll just tell you guys flat out, Luke never said there was a taxing, and Luke never said Quirinius was governor of Syria. And anyone who speaks ancient Greek, and all these scholars should have been the first people to look at the text and go, actually, this word apocryph, tax, doesn't mean tax. It's the King James Bible that translated the word as taxed. In Greek, it does not mean taxed. It's an enrollment, it's an enlisting, it's a list, it's a census. And it does not say Quirinius was governor in Syria. This is a noun, a governor, it's a noun. But if you go to the Greek, it's actually a present participle. It doesn't say that he was actually the governor of Syria. It says he was the one commanding authority. He was exercising power in Syria. And then, of course, when you go and learn who Quirinius really was, and you look at his career, and you understand how Roman law works, and you understand how Roman military worked, military procedures, especially in the province of Syria, you're going to see that Luke is not wrong. He is the most accurate historian in the world at this time, in my opinion. He shatters everybody. And then the next one they bring up is this Acts 5, and they look at this guy Theudas, and anyways, they tell you that, oh, Luke must have been a bumbling historian. He's clearly stealing from Josephus. There's no such thing. He's taking a guy from the future and putting him backwards, and he's got everything wrong. And guys, I'm so grateful that I listened to my opponents. I heard what they said. They forced me to study this, and that's why I wrote a book on it. Now, I'm not one of these guys that's going to say you have to buy my book. Hopefully, God willing, I can make videos, and everything in the book, there'll be a video on it. I'm not the kind of guy that's going to be like, oh, if you want to know, you got to buy the book. Absolutely not. I believe we're at war. And this is not a time for me to be like, oh, if you want to know, like I get why pastors do that. There's a lot of great scholars and pastors who will do videos, and they're going to give you like 80 or 50% of the argument and then say, well, if you want to know the rest, you need to go buy my book. And it's kind of like the Bible says, buy the truth and sell it not. buy the truth and sell it not. And I want to listen to the Bible, okay? That I don't believe in hoarding knowledge, hoarding information. For me, the discoveries I made on this topic completely changed the way I read the New Testament, the way I understand why did the Jews actually kill Jesus. It's not what you think. I thought it was just because he was attacking the Talmud or the oral law, the traditions of the elders. No, it's so much deeper when you actually, and it's all here. It's all by learning this history and understanding the events that are going on surrounding Judea, what's going on in Syria, what's going on with Quirinius between 6 AD and 6 BC and 2 AD. That's the secret to unlocking the nativity. Okay? It also ties in Chinese astronomy. The Chinese recorded a star went nova in the eastern sky, and then by the time of summer of 5 BC, that nova was now directly above Bethlehem. Anyways, so the book covers all that stuff, and I'm just in the process of raising money so I can get it properly published. And so, anyways, if people want to help with that, look, guys, I am fully dependent on you. This is, understand something, like I'm not a guy. The people that I try to go against are very well-funded people. They are university professors. They have six-figure incomes. They have 10 years at universities. They have book sales. They even force their students at university, you have to buy my books. Like, I'm going against guys that are seriously funded. And at the same time, I'm very censored, okay? A lot of my opponents receive funding. They have support. They have a team behind them. I don't. I'm completely alone in exile living in the Balkans, you know? And if I can't do this, like sometimes it might take me time to make a video. It's because I have to sit there for 16 hours a day researching, reading, studying, investigating, trying to find a way to build the arguments against these people, against the establishments that are working very hard to destroy Christianity. And so in my research for that book, I learned that there's only two options here. Either the mainstream academic scholars are either incompetent and cannot understand basic ancient Greek. They can't look at a word and go, well, you know, actually that word doesn't mean taxed, and well, that word actually isn't even a noun. It's a present participle. It should not be Quirinius was governor of Syria. It should not say Pontius Pilate was governor of Judea, which says that in Luke chapter 3. Why would Luke write Pontius Pilate was governor of Judea when there was no such thing as that position? There was no such thing as a governor of Judea. That position doesn't exist, yet it's in the Bible. It's because nobody translated the Bible properly. It's not proper Roman history. There was never a position governor of Judea, just like it doesn't say Quirinius was governor of Syria. Okay? It's a whole different word, has a whole different meaning, and when you apply history with Roman law and military protocols, it all makes perfect sense. Okay? It is amazing, and I can't wait to actually share it with you. But understand that if I don't have support, I actually can't do this, right? And so, yeah. But anyway, so let's get into Hellenism. And we have to start with actually the Persian Empire, which I absolutely love. And so we're going to look, and again, when you look at the map of ancient Persia, what do you notice, guys? These are the lands where we're bleeding and dying. These are the lands that have brought us to $40 trillion in debt. Dead Americans, dead Westerners, all for nothing, you know? And, you know, you'd think that we were told, oh, well, we need to go to the east because resources and whatever, or, you know, a lot of people were like, yeah, we need Saddam's oil. We were way better off buying the oil from Saddam himself than letting our politicians get into Iraq. Do you know, like, when I was a kid, guys, I paid in Canada maybe 50 to 60 cents a liter for gasoline. And that's Canadian. So if we were to convert that, it's like, I don't know what that would be. Like maybe $1.20 a gallon US. A dollar, just over a dollar. Yeah, maybe $1.20 or something for a gallon. It was really cheap. Okay. And now it's like, it's insane how much everything's gone up. And you'd think it would be the opposite, right? No, no. So anyway, so we're going to look at the lands, the unconquerable lands that the Greeks couldn't hold, the Romans couldn't even get inside. Every Roman general failed. Crassus, Mark Antony, Trajan, they all failed, all of them. Crassus, when he got captured, how did the Persians kill him? Because he was the wealthiest man in Rome, and maybe this is a legend, but this is what it says, that the Persians, it's like Game of Thrones. Remember when they poured the gold over the guy's head, the Targaryen guy? And, well, they apparently held Crassus down, opened his mouth, and poured molten gold down his throat. And that's how Crassus met his end, saying you were greedy, you wanted our stuff, and that's how the Persians apparently killed the richest man in Rome who tried to conquer their lands. Okay? And again, so what do you notice about these lands? They're the same lands. Guys, this is where empires go to die. And if you think it's gonna end any different, these people have never been conquered. They've never been subdued. And the same, when they try to do the same to us, the same happens to them. They bleed out all their forces, they bleed out all their resources, the Ottomans, the Moors, whichever. When they do the same to us, it eventually leads to the destruction of their empires. Okay? And that's exactly, so I don't know why we just can't seem to learn from history, but what I'm going to say about the Persian Empire is it was the best, the better of the, if I had to choose between living in Persia, Greece, or Rome, I would have probably chosen the ancient Persian Empire. And the reason is, well, we're going to go over it. Okay, so let's talk about the Greek-Persian Wars. And it starts with Cyrus the Great. And Cyrus the Great was a great liberator. When Cyrus the Great took Babylon, he let the Jews go back home, go build your temple, go serve your God, whatever. If Cyrus the Great conquered you, he let you keep your laws, keep your king, keep your customs, keep your everything, your traditions, your gods, everything. He does not care. All he's asking you for is an alliance. If you're attacked, I come and help you. If I'm attacked, you come and help me. You pay a small tax and you provide military men. That's it. To help. And in return, you get access to the postal routes. You get access to the king's highways for trade. You have guards. You're protected. It's not a bad deal. Okay? And so, contrary, if we were to contrast that with the Greeks to come, they're forcing their customs on you. They're forcing their language on you. Cyrus the Great didn't force, he spoke Aryan. He was an Aryan speaker, okay? And he didn't say to his conquered people, hey, you need to learn my language. Cyrus went, oh, you know what? It actually makes more sense for my people to learn your language. And we're actually going to rule the empire from, this side of the Tigris. We're actually going to switch the languages. We'll speak our language back at home, but across the rest of the empire, we're going to speak Syriac Aramaic. And so the Persian Empire, the lingua franca, was Aramaic Syriac. Okay, so meanwhile, the Greeks, when they come in, they're going to outlaw all your customs and all your stuff, and now you're going to be forced to speak their version of Greek, and that's it. Okay, and we're going to see just how barbaric it actually was. Okay, so in let's just build a timeline to get to the Greeks, okay? And we have to do that with Cyrus the Great, okay? And so Cyrus the Great conquered Media. So Persia was a tiny little like province, little kingdom, okay? It was formerly Elam, but the Elamites were the kings of the Elamites were deposed after the Syrian wars because the Syrians removed them, and then they put the Persians on the throne there. And so the Elamite kingdom got absorbed by these people called the Pars, the Persians. And then he's going to take his grandfather's kingdom of Media. And then from Media, he takes Lydia, which is really Turkey. And in there's a whole bunch of Greek cities like Ephesus and Miletus and Samos. So there's a lot of great Greek cities. In fact, the greatest Greek cities weren't Athens. It wasn't Athens. It wasn't Sparta. It wasn't Corinth. These were like the backwaters of the ancient Greek world at this time. Okay? The real powerful cities were the ones in Turkey, in Asia Minor. And so now Cyrus is going to take the Lydians, and the Greeks are part of the Lydian kingdom, the ones in Turkey. The ones in Europe, Sparta, Athens, Corinth, Thebes, these kind of places, they're not. Okay, they're out of reach. Okay, and so in 546 BC, Cyrus is going to take these lands, and then what happens is when the Ionians asked for the same terms they had under the Lydians, Cyrus refused. So what happened here was, after Cyrus takes Lydia, the Greeks are, hey, can you give us the same deal that we had with the Lydians? And Cyrus is like, no, he hates these Greeks. He looks at them as absolute cheaters. Because he remembered they didn't help him when he was fighting Croesus. So he installs tyrants, pro-Persian Greek governors, to keep them in line. And this is why, when the Persians were fighting the Lydians, the Greeks didn't help the Lydians. And they didn't help Cyrus. They sat back and waited to see who was going to win. And then when they saw that Lydia was doomed, that's when they went to Cyrus. Now, there was the odd Greek mercenary that fought for Cyrus or whatever, but there was no Greek city that actually fought for Lydia, and no Greek city actually helped Cyrus. So Cyrus, in the end, went, well, you guys are a bunch of, like, traitors. You didn't even help your king against me, and now you're asking me for independence. Like, if this is what you do to your kings, why would I trust you with anything? Okay? So it ends with Cyrus just saying, absolutely not. You're my subjects. I'm not going to be your allies. Okay? And so now this is going to lead to the Ionian revolt. So now Cyrus is dead at this point. He took Babylon and all that stuff. But now Darius the Great is now ruling. And this guy, Aristagoras, okay, of Miletus. So this guy is going to go around and ask the Spartans, the Athenians, he's going to go around the whole Greek world and ask them, hey, can you help us? We're going to launch a revolution against these Persians, and then we want to conquer their lands, right? And a lot of these Greeks, the moment they found out how far Persia was, they're like, we're not marching that far. We're not marching, what was it like? I don't know what it was. It was like almost 3,000 kilometers. We're not marching there we don't care about this king. So the Greeks in Europe, except for the Athenians join in. And so this leads to the Ionian revolt. And they actually burn down Sardis. They burn down the capital city in Turkey. And the Athenians actually came. The Athenians actually helped, okay? And so when they burned down Sardis, so the rebels burned down the regional Persian capital, and this enrages Darius I, who reportedly has a servant whisper to him, At every meal, master, remember the Athenians. So the Persians are a little slow when it comes to responding. But let me tell you something. Once the Persians mobilize, it's done. Okay, they're slow to act, but once they act, it's usually game over for you. So naturally, the Persians come in. They retake all their Greek cities. They go even further. They now cross into Europe, and they start taking territories there, all the way into like Macedonia. And now it's going to lead to, okay, so this is now the famous movie 300 and all that stuff. But before Xerxes, before like the movie 300 and the Spartans and all that, you have the Battle of Marathon, okay? And so Darius sends a punitive expedition. Despite being outnumbered, the Athenian hoplites, using superior heavy infantry tactics, crushed the Persian landing force. This proves the Persian immortals are not invincible. Now, something interesting happened in this battle, and I forgot the expression. There's an expression that existed all throughout the Byzantine Empire, and it translates, the horses are away. The horses are away. And the evidence kind of proves here, because what the Persians did at Marathon is they decided to put their cavalry onto boats and then come around from behind the Greeks. Okay, the Greeks are up on a hill. There's maybe like 10,000 Greek hoplites, all in bronze armor. And for some reason, the Greeks knew to charge. And what they believe happened, what some people believe happened, was the Greeks in the Persian army who didn't like the Persians signaled to the Greeks, their fellow Greeks that they're actually against, and informed them the horses are away, that the Persians are moving their horses, and that this is the time to actually come down the hill and strike. And they did, and they destroyed the Persian army, and Darius had to go and retreat. Darius actually wasn't in that battle, I don't think. I think it was either his brother or his cousin. Anyways, now 10 years later, this is now going to lead to the Battle of Marathon. And now you have the son of Darius, Xerxes. So now we're at the Battle of 300, the 300 Spartans. There was actually, I think, closer to 5,000 people there, 5,000 Greeks when you count all the auxiliaries, it was just being led by 300 Spartans. And they held the pass, and then they were betrayed, all that stuff. And then we have the Battle of Salamis just after, and this is the great naval victory. This is the pretty much the end of the Persians. The Persians will never again step foot this far into Europe ever again. But it did end with the burning of Athens. Okay, so Athens, after Xerxes retreated, he left a force there, and they burnt Athens to the ground. All right, and now we have this middle period, the Delian League, Athens. Now that at this point, it's really embarrassing because the Greeks are terrible. The Greeks can never work together. Never. And that was a serious strength that the Romans had. The Romans were quite good at working together. They were their administration was just phenomenal. They were so well organized, the Romans. Like even like doing census, like a census, accounting. They were obsessed. Caesar Augustus was obsessed with counting people, knowing how many people was in his empire. And that's going to tie into actually the birth of Christ. The first census in England wasn't done until the 1800s. Think about that. I think 1801. The first time England actually did accounting to count their people. They did count before, and that's for tax reasons. But they never did a nationwide census until the 1800s. Meanwhile, the Romans were doing them every 12 or 14 years, counting how many people they have in their empire. Right? The Romans were much more organized, I would even say, than the English until the 1800s. So the Athenians make this Delian League, They get a whole bunch of allies. It's really like the Athenian Empire. But the Spartans don't like the Athenians. They're jealous of the Athenians. The Athenians are very wealthy. They build a massive fleet. The Spartans are just soldiers on the mainland. The Spartans actually, the Spartans are just soldiers on the mainland. The Athenians are out in their ships, trade, making a fortune, stockpiling a huge wealth. They went as far as Egypt, the Athenians. They conquered and ruled in Egypt and kicked out the Persians for, I don't know, maybe like 5 to 10 years or something like this. A short-lived victory. But the Spartans got so jealous of the Athenians that the Spartans went to the Persians and said, "Hey, give us gold, let us build a fleet, and we're going to take out the Athenians." So that brings us to the Peloponnesian Wars. And now you've got the Greeks are just killing each other, fighting each other. Spartans versus the Greeks, the Dorics versus the Ionians. And they just kill each other, right? And now Athens is destroyed, right? Socrates, the great philosopher Socrates, he was a heavy infantry soldier, hoplite soldier, fighting in these wars. And so the Spartans betrayed the Athenians, went to the Persians, got Persian gold, built their own fleet, and then destroyed Athens. Okay, destroyed the Perea, destroyed the little city that guarded their ports, and it was just like it's before 50 years before, these guys were all fighting side by side at Thermopylae, fighting side by side at Salamis. It was really a joint victory over the Persians, and now the Spartans are just total traitors. And then it gets so bad between these two, they just keep going back and forth destroying each other, that they actually have to both go to the Persians. And now you've got an Athenian and a Spartan, and they're both kneeling down before the Persians, and they're asking the Persians to be the arbitrators, the middlemen to settle their disputes. So in their attempt to free themselves from Persia, they enslave themselves, and now the Persians are now ruling over them as their overlords. And so yeah, the Greeks really, like, it's just mental illness. They just couldn't put their egos aside and work together. They ruined every forest in Greece. They cut down every forest for their ships. They lost everything, right? These Greeks. And now the Persian kings are ruling over them. Oh yeah, and what the Spartans promised the Persians, I forgot this. They all the Greek cities that the Athenians freed and liberated, all those great cities in Asia Minor, the Spartans are like, yeah, if you give us gold to build a fleet so we can backstab the Athenians, we're going to give you all those Greek cities that the Athenians freed. And the Persians are like, yeah, okay, that's great. So the Spartan, like, I really don't like the Spartans. Like, I don't, everyone loves the Spartans. They're like this. I don't like the Spartans. I don't like the Athenians. I mean, I don't know. Even Corinth, they're a bunch of degenerates. They had like the biggest, I don't know, maybe like Miletus, maybe some of the older Greek cities. But even then, they're a bunch of like, I don't know. I'm not a big fan. I like the Persians, to be honest. Like, I think they were the most fair. I think that, anyways, that's not, my opinion doesn't really matter, actually. But, so now the final reckoning. It's not it's not an Athenian, it's not a Spartan, it's not a Corinthian, it's a Macedonian. It's King Philip II, genius man. Macedonia has all the forests of Europe behind him. All of mainland Greece has destroyed all their forests to make ships and just kill each other. But Philip has this endless supply of lumber in his backyard. So, Philip is now selling ships, building ships, selling wood, taking silver mines. Philip of Macedon has so much money that he can now hire a professional army. He increases the Greek spears. the phalanxes by like 2 meters or something crazy like that, and and just and now has a full-time army. See, back then in ancient Greece, really only nobles could be soldiers. Nobles could be soldiers, and if you were a very rich noble, because only nobles could afford horses and armor and weapons, but some nobles could arm their slaves, and then their slaves would come with them. Usually a slave is just a squire. He just carries the armor, helps you carry the stuff to go to battle. But Philip now has learned from the Spartans, he's learned from the Athenians, he's learned from everybody, he's learned from the Persians, right? He also has elite cavalry. The Greeks were heavy infantry people. They didn't really have horses too much. Philip takes the best of Persia, trains an elite cavalry unit, and then completely reforms the military. And he has so much wealth from selling lumber and wood and ships and taking silver and gold mines that he now has a professional army that wakes up every day and just trains, and they eat the best food, and they're machines, okay? And no one in Greece can now stand against the Macedonians, like no one, okay? And so yeah, the sarissa, the long pike. So yeah, he really revolutionized warfare. Now Philip is assassinated. He's murdered. Some people blame the Persian king for it. Some people blame, it was probably the mother of Alexander the Great, who hired, what's his name? It starts with a P. The name of the assassin. It slipped my mind. What's his name? Pyomedes? I think that's it. It's close. Anyways, Philip's own bodyguard kills him. Anyways, and now Alexander the Great takes over at a very young age. I think he was 23 years old. And Alexander fulfills his father's plan, takes his father's army. His father did all the hard work, but now Alexander's a young man, takes over, marches across the Hellespont, crosses into Turkey, into Asia Minor, takes all those Greek cities that the Spartans gave back to the Persians after the Athenians freed them. And then, so he marched his Greeks into Asia, and then they take Persepolis, the capital of the Persians, and to get revenge for what they did to Athens, like 150 years before, they burned down the Persian capital. And the Achaemenid dynasty, the dynasty started by Cyrus and Darius, is now officially done, and Alexander is now ruling the known world. All right, so now things are going to change, okay? You don't have this Persian Empire that lets every country rule and govern themselves. Again, all Cyrus wanted from you was, hey, we have an empire to run. You can engage in trade. You can travel across my empire in safety. There are patrols. There are way stations. You have nothing to fear in the empire. There's a postal system, an amazing postal system that we mimic today. The postal system, really, Persians. And the downside is, okay, you got to pay taxes for it. Well, yeah, you got to run the empire. And if there's a war, you have to send troops. But if you're attacked, Cyrus is coming for you, which is demonstrated all throughout Persian history, right? So it's not a bad deal. But now when you come to the Greeks, well, it doesn't work like that with the Greeks, okay? All right, so now the Persian Empire is carved up, and you've got 5 guys, really, okay? And the 5 guys are Seleucus, and he's ruling in the east, in Persia, okay, and in Babylon. And then you have Ptolemy ruling in the south. Lysimachus is in Thrace, okay, at the Hellespont. Cassander is in Macedonia. But then you've got this guy, Antigones. And he's very special because what he's going to do, he's the guy if you ever saw the movie Alexander, it's the guy with one eye. I'm pretty sure that's Antigonus. And he's a very powerful guy, very prestigious guy, very well-respected general. And where all of Alexander's generals are carving up Alexander's kingdom, cutting it into pieces, Antigonus is like, no, we're going to bring it all back together and I'm going to rule, right? So all of Alexander's generals that all want their own kingdom gang up on him, and that's it. He's killed in battle. I think it's the battle of Ipsus. And then he's got a son, Demetrius. Demetrius flees and runs, gets on his ships, and he's a powerful guy. They have the biggest navy. They run onto into the Mediterranean, the Aegean, and his son Demetrius just hides on his ships with his men. He's still a very powerful guy. He's so powerful, he's going to come and take the kingdom from Cassander's heirs. Cassander murdered all of Alexander the Great's family. Mother, children, probably his brother. Alexander the Great, I think it was Philip the Third. Yeah, Philip would have been Philip the Third. Alexander the Great had a brother, and he was most likely mentally retarded. Now, it's hard to say exactly, but they did kind of make him king. And I think it does kind of show some respect and love for Alexander. Because I'm pretty sure his brother, he was slow-minded, is what it says. But everyone loved Philip. But it was his half-brother, and the evidence is kind of going to show that I think it very well could have been Alexander's mother who killed him. Anyway, so now it's just assassinations, murder, killing, and Greek civil war. So Cassander pretty much destroys Alexander's bloodline, and then Demetrius comes with his boats after Cassander's dead. He sets up in Macedon, and then you get more or less this image here. So you're going to get Seleucus, the yellow here, okay, Ptolemy in Egypt, the blue here, and then you're going to get, at this point, it's not Cassander. Cassander's going to, the bloodline's going to switch from Cassander back to Antigonus's heirs, and then it's going to end back with the grandson of Antigone's, and that's just it. And then you're going to have Pyrrhus of Epirus. I'm just kind of getting ahead of myself. But anyway, so now the Greeks have taken over the world. They're not going to rule like the Persians, okay? They're not going to rule like the Persians. It's not about, oh, you want to speak your language? No. You're going to speak Greek. Anyone who doesn't speak Greek is a barbarian, okay? And barbarian is really, like in English, we'll say blah, 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 blah. In Greek, they said bar, 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 bar. So blah, 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 bar, 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 bar. So if you can't speak our language, it just sounds like you're blah, blah, blahing. So that's where you get the term barbarian. They're just blah, blahing, okay? We don't understand what you're saying, blah, 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 like, the adults in Charlie Brown. So the Greeks are now going to enforce their language, and anyone who doesn't is like a lower citizen. You have a huge contrast. It's a big difference between Cyrus, Alexander, and now the Diadochi, the successors of Alexander. 3 completely different mentalities, okay? And the point here is why it's insane to call yourself a neopagan nationalist and then point at the Greeks and the Romans and go, see how great Europe was? Like, these were race mixing, if they weren't race mixing hubs, okay? And again, I don't care if you are for race mixing or against it. I think if you want to be a race mixer, go over there, go do it. If you want to not race mix and keep your own people, go over there, do it. And no one, I don't for me, I think both should be allowed, and the world's big enough to allow people to do it, okay? But the point is, Alexander the Great was a race mixer. He was forcing race mixing. He had something called the Susa weddings, and he forced, I think, 10,000 of his men to marry Persian women, okay? And anyways, so let's just understand the difference of the three. I'll get to Alexander next. Cyrus the Great, the architect of inclusion. So Cyrus the Great founded the Achaemenid dynasty, the Achaemenid Empire on religious and cultural pluralism. Unlike earlier conquerors, he did not erase local identities or force Persian worship. He notably allowed displaced groups such as the Jews in Babylon to return home and rebuild their temple. By acting as a liberator, he maintained stability through local laws rather than Medo-Persian supremacy. So this is what I mean by I think the Persians were the best. Because if you're going to have anyone conquer you, you want the Persians to conquer you. Okay? They were also a very honorable people. And also, like, they were very big on promoting marriage. Okay? I mean, they were polygamists a lot of the time. Which back then you kind of needed to be polygamous. The Persians were actually, in my opinion, I mean, look, if you're a hedonist and you want to party and drink and have sex with men and women and have sex with little boys and fight in a bunch of crazy wars that don't make sense, well, yeah, then the Greeks are probably for you. I could see why, if that's your mentality, ancient Greece is for you. But if you're a more traditionalist, man, woman, you want to live in a country where it's your people, it's your traditions, it's your laws, and you have a king who will send an army to defend you if you're attacked, but then if your king's attacked or another province is attacked, you have to go and help, then Persia's more for you, right? The Persian motto was ride hard, shoot straight, and always tell the truth. Okay? They were horsemen, they were horse archers, they were great warriors up until the later. Anyways, I love the Persians. Okay? Originally, like if I were to go back to before I really studied this stuff, obviously I would choose the Romans and the Greeks. I mean, look at their armor and their helmets and their spears, and it's true, and I feel more connected to the Greco-Romans in a sense of architecture and law, and because I grew up, I'm still a descendant of the Greco-Roman world, okay? At least on my mother's side. And so I do feel a stronger connection to that culture in a sense. But later in my life, when I got to studying and actually examining, I'm sorry, the ancient Persians, for me, is the best of the options, okay? And so now Alexander the Great, he had the vision of fusion. So now Cyrus is let everyone be their own people, have their own lands, have their own laws, their own everything, and we are just there for each other. We trade together and we fight together. I like it. Alexander, on the other hand, is like, nope, we're going to breed out the Greek and we're going to breed out the Persian and we're going to create a super race. Okay, so again, now we're understanding why I think it's insane for neopagan nationalists to point at the Greeks and go, like, see, we need to be like them. Well, they're race mixers, okay? Alexander the Great forced race mixing. Okay, so Alexander the Great attempted a cultural fusion of the East and West. He sought a unified elite by adopting Persian dress, training Persian youths for his phalanx, and orchestrating the Susa weddings. Okay, so 10,000 of his men got married, maybe 20,000. All his generals, all his top guys, everyone had to take Persian wives. His goal was to dissolve the borders between the Greek and barbarian, envisioning an integrated empire where shared identity mattered more than origin. Okay, so now the generals of Alexander did not agree. They're like, what the hell? We are the supreme race. Greeks are the best. We're not mixing with these people. So the return to supremacy. So after Alexander's death, His generals, the Diadochi, replaced his multicultural vision with rigid Greek supremacy. They viewed his policies as a betrayal, divorced their Persian wives, and established a colonial hierarchy. Greek became the mandatory language of power, regulating native populations to second-class status and setting the stage for centuries of cultural resistance. So, naturally, when you conquer a people and then you start forcing your way of life onto them, you're going to get this resistance. And what's happened in our modern world is all of a sudden we've got the liberals forcing this new way of life, this wokeism, this earth worship, material worship. I am my own God. There is no God, or the earth is a spirit. Christianity is a lie. Let's teach homosexuality and sex to people and little 6-year-olds in kindergarten. Let's have our gay pride parades, drug culture, smoke weed every day. This is all being pushed, and now there's a resistance, right? And what's crazy is a lot of these, it varies from people to people. I mean, some people, some people claim they want to return to traditional values, but yet they don't demonstrate that at all in their daily lives. Like the alt-right people, do you know, there's so many, I don't want to mention names, but there's a lot of people that are like big right-wing speakers, and then you find out what they're really like in real life, and they are anything but what they preach, right? Let's just say it's very kino. Anyways, so this is the difference. This is the three. Okay, so we've got Cyrus. Okay, everyone respects their lands, their cultures, and all that stuff. You've got Alexander the race mixer, but now you've got the guys forcing Hellenism on people that they've conquered. So which one do you guys like? Do you want to live in a world where you're now conquered by these homosexual Greeks and they're now forcing their language, their culture, their gymnasiums, all this stuff? When I say gymnasiums, it's interesting because in the Western world, at least in America, if I were to say gymnasium to an American or a Canadian, that is strictly really a place where you go and train physically, like to work out. But now living in the Balkans here, it's interesting because the word gymnasium is actually for school. It's for scholastic, it's for scholarly pursuits. And in ancient Greece, the gymnasium was in a sense both. It was not just for physical fitness, it was also, so where the people I live with now in the Balkans use this word gymnasium as a place for studying, in Canada and America, we really just use it as a place to work out. But in ancient Greece, it was kind of both. This is going to be very important. We're going to talk about gymnasiums soon. Okay, so I just like you guys, if you want to even throw it like a comment in the comment section, I mean, if it doesn't get banned or blocked, which one do you want? Do you want to live under a king who respects your territory and lets you completely govern yourself? Do you want to live where the king is forcing everyone to race mix? Do you want to live where now you've got a foreign culture forcing their way of life and language and everything on you? Which one? I vote for Cyrus. So you guys can vote too. So let's look at some of the customs and I've already covered this, guys. I've already covered this, but we're going to, because this is now going to lead to the Maccabean revolt. Why did the Jews revolt? Because the customs of the ancient Greeks, like having sex with little children, little boys, their gods, the whole degeneracy of their culture, is what caused the Jewish Maccabees to revolt. Okay, the Jews to revolt. So, ironically, the Jews are actually the good guys, right? In this story, and the European pagans are the complete degenerate psychopaths in this story. Okay, so the words we have to look at is Orestes, this first one. Okay, it's a lover. It's an older male in a pedarastic relationship. Paius, which is a boy, the younger boy, the beloved. Okay, so they could be younger, but generally they started at 12 years old. Okay, start their mentorship is what you call it. Eron, okay, comes from eros. It's very specifically erotic love, okay, like to admire someone. Okay, it's not. The Greeks have multiple different ways that they can express love. So when it uses this word here, eros, eron, which the Bible 0 times. The other Greek words for love is philios, which is like a brotherly love, storge, which is like a parental love, protecting your children, and then agape, which is unconditional love. And surprise, surprise, in the Bible, we don't have eros. Eron never made the list. It's not even in the Bible. Erotic love is never there. It's unconditional love is the number one, and then you're gonna have, I think, philios and storge in certain parts, but it's predominantly agape, unconditional love. All right, so when we go to Athenian law, the great Greeks and their infinite wisdom. But the lawgiver declared that a slave must not be a lover, an Erastes of a free boy, a paius, nor follow after him. If he does, he shall be punished with 50 lashes. So, I mean, even if you are caught with a noble little boy, it's 50 lashes, like, to be honest, like, I imagine, I think there was a man in Texas who was helping a guy, got him a job and all this stuff, and then he caught the guy raping his child, and the farmer killed him with the Texas guy killed him with his bare hands. And then the best part about that story is that when they put him on trial for murder in that county, not a single judge was willing to judge him, right, at this time. The guy got off. The guy killed the guy because he raped his son, right? After he helped him and got him on his feet and gave him a job and did everything for him. And anyways, but I mean, 50 lashes, like, I think most parents who love their kids would just, I don't know, blinding rage, right? Here it's in Athens, it's just 50 lashes if you're pursuing erotically trying to pursue a young noble boy. But he did not forbid a free man to love eros, erotic love, to associate with him, okay, a paius, okay, for a man to erotically love a boy. So the lawgiver did not believe that harm came to the boy from this, but rather such a relationship was a test of character. Like, okay, it's NAMBLA. It's not North American Man Boy Love Association. It's Epstein Island, but in law, it's protected. Right? Let's guys. So Athenian law punished a slave with 50 lashes for chasing a free-born boy, but allowed free men to love him, erotically love him. The lawmakers called it a test of the boy's virtue. In other words, Pedarasty wasn't banned in classical Greece. It was institutionalized, a civic ritual of mentorship disguised as morality. I want to show you guys this because when you're trying to find sources on this, it's really difficult because you have to go to the Greek sources. You can't really go to the English. The English has completely sanitized it. And I'm going to just show you an example. So we're going to read Herodotus here. And it really bothers me. So we're going to read the English here. But of all men, so now he's talking about when the Greeks and the Persians are interacting together. So Herodotus is writing, he would have been born, or he would have been a young boy during I think he would have been a young boy. Yeah, during the battles, the Xerxes, the Spartans, the 300 Thermopylae. But he grew up in the Persian Empire. So he's a Greek. He's a Dorian Greek. So he spoke the same language as the Spartans. There wasn't like Koine Greek, like the main Greek wasn't established yet. You had different dialects of Greek. But Herodotus was a Dorian Greek living in Turkey, in southern Turkey, in Halicarnassus. And so he's a very neutral source when it comes to Persian and Greek history. When the Athenians were good, he wrote good things about the Athenians. When the Spartans were good, he wrote good things about them. But the Spartans hated him. The Dorians, his fellow Dorians, he got kicked out of his homeland. He spoke well about the Persians, but he spoke well about the Athenians, and that's what pissed off his Dorian Greeks, is because like he was honest in his writings. The Athenians really saved the day. The Athenians built the navy. The Athenians chased the Persians away. The Spartans were a bunch of two-faced, scoundrels. But now here he is writing about an interaction with the Greeks and the Persians, okay? And now let's read this. But of all men, the Persians most welcome foreign customs. See, the Persians aren't prude, okay? They wear the Median dress, deeming it more beautiful than their own. And the Egyptian cuirass in war. Their luxurious practices are of all kinds and all borrowed. This is it. The Greeks taught them unnatural vices. The Greeks taught them unnatural vices. And then it goes to say, every Persian marries many lawful wives and keeps still more concubines. He's probably talking about the nobility, okay? Now, what does that mean? The Greeks taught them unnatural vices. I'm going to tell you guys something. It does not say that in ancient Greek. That is the English translators, and it's like to say the Greeks taught them unnatural vices. That could be anything. Guys, do you notice this word here? Do you notice? We just went over this. Pais, paidi, okay, paisi, and then it has this word misconte. The English translation, this is what it literally means. Learning from the ancient Greeks that they have intercourse with boys. So when you're reading the English translation, you're going to read the Greeks taught them unnatural vices. They're the ones bringing this into Persia. And what it actually says is they're teaching them how to have sex with little boys. But the translators are smart. They're hiding what it really says. So you, the English reader, I love the Greeks. I love the Greeks. Well, yeah, because you have no idea what they're actually doing. You have no idea what they're actually doing. Okay? Because the English the Greek translators translating it from ancient Greek to English are hiding. They're sanitizing the writings. So because how angry would you be knowing this, that the Greeks are actually teaching the Persians how to have sex with little boys, but the Persians are more into having multiple wives and concubines. Like, come on, guys, where do you want to be? Do you want to be on Team Persia or Team Greece here? So I just want to give you that as an example of sanitization, what to look for. Always check the Greek. Always, always, always check the Greek because the English translators are hiding it. So now they're creating this image of the ancient Greeks that's not honest. And now we have a better insight. And so imagine being these Persians who are more in a world where they have lots of wives. They live in a world where you don't force your customs on people. You don't force your language on people. The Persians went as far as to learn the language of their conqueror. The people they conquered, they said, you know what, guys, we'll learn your language. How about that? You don't have to learn our language. We're not going to force our gods or our language or anything on you. We'll let you keep all your stuff. And you know what? We'll learn your language. And then we'll run our empire in your language. The Greeks, no, you're going to learn our ways. And now we're coming to the gymnasiums. What was going on in the gymnasiums? Okay? So yeah, you guys can check the sources yourselves and you guys can see that I'm not making this up. Now this isn't that... this is really gross and creepy. That's why I put it here. But this guy Strato of Sardis, he's not like an authority. He's just like a writer, a poet, a guy writing. This isn't like, I wouldn't hold, you can't compare this guy to Plato or Aristotle or Solon or like a lawmaker or a great philosopher. But this is just some writing that's going around. So don't point at this and be like, oh, you see, this is a good source. No, this is just some jackass writing something, okay? But it is creepy. That's why I just want to read it. So, I delight in the prime of a boy of 12, but one of 13 is much more desirable. He who is 14 is still a sweeter flower of the loves, and one who is just beginning his 15th year is yet more delightful. The 16th year is that of the gods, and as for the 17th, it is not for me, but for Zeus to seek it. But if one has a desire for those still older, he no longer plays, but now seeks, and answering him back. So this is obviously, like, guys, they're talking, the guy's writing about, like, 12 and 13-year-old boys and desiring them. Like, this is some Greek literature going around. Now, it's not a standard. It is the standard. We've already gone over Athenian law where, nobles it's regulated for them to take apprentices, and they're the mentors, right? And it's really, for me, it's really, really creepy. So I don't look at ancient Greece as this great, I'm not denying some of their accomplishments, I'm not denying anything like that, but you are going to an era of absolute chaos and civil war, and what the Persians offered versus what the Greeks brought is just night and day, okay? So, and now we have it in the religion, Zeus and Ganymede, their whole religion. I think this is Socrates, and when a man is seized with this madness, seeing a beauty of the boy, the pais, and is remembering true beauty, when Zeus himself was in love, Eros, okay, with Ganymede, the boy of Troy, like, and here's an actual statue showing the god Zeus running away with his little boy lover, right? So yeah, guys, it's really creepy stuff, okay? All right, so then we also have the great Apollo and Hyacinth. We've already covered all this, but again, just like Apollo also erotically loved a youth, a pais named Hyacinthus, and he was the son of a Lycaonian king, and together they took exercise, and that's very important, and practiced throwing the discus. Now, guys, I know it sounds crazy. But it's much bigger than you think, because what's going on at the gymnasiums, it's when they took exercise and practice throwing the discs, it's much more than that, and we're gonna see it from Plato. But this is what it is, and even like the statue, I think this is from the Renaissance, I'm pretty sure. It's just so creepy. Like, this is the great Apollo and his little boy lover on his knees. Like, this is just the creepiest. All right, let's go back to ancient Greece, right? It's just, you might as well just go to the pride parades, be pro-pedophilia, all that stuff, okay? You might as well. Okay, now we've gone over this before too. Like in the Orphic traditions of Zeus, now they're going to say none of this is literal, because it's true. Like, by the time you get to Plato, Plato is pretty good. Like, I like Plato. And Plato's going to come around, and like even Socrates was still a pederast. He still had sex with little boys. But Socrates at least said, you can't just love the boy for how he looks. It can't just be a physical attraction. You need to love the spirit. You need to love, at least have it was noble pederasty. I'm not condoning that. I'm just saying at least he's one step better than the other guys. And then Plato comes along, and this is the guy I like. And Plato's like, no, children shouldn't be touched at all, right? Like, this is a no zone. And so now you're going to get the, like, Neoplatonists and stuff. And now the argument here is when you read the Orphic traditions, because now they're like, oh, you can't take any of our religion seriously because the gods are worse than mortal men. And so, like, in this story, Zeus has a daughter with either his sister or his mother. So he rapes either his mother or his sister after killing his father, kills his father. Then he has a baby with his mother or sister, depending on which tradition you follow. They have Persephone, and then he runs away with Persephone, his daughter, rapes her too, and then they give birth to Dionysius Zagreus, and this is and then he's kind of ripped apart, torn apart, and he kind of becomes this, it's like savior kind of sacrifice figure. And so now whether you take it literally or you don't, this is what they taught. It's really dark stuff, guys. Anyways, these are their gods. This is the kind of stuff they believe in. Okay, so now we're going to look at the Greek gymnasiums. All right? And so Plato explicitly links the institutions of the gymnasia to the culture where men engage in sexual relations with men, identifying the athletic spaces as the incubators for what he deemed a lack of sexual control. So when we get to the Bible, okay, and in the Bible, it reads that the Jews are getting angry that the Greeks are building gymnasiums. You might read that and go, wow, what's up? What's up, my dudes? Why can't we work out? Why are the Jews so against us lifting weights at the gym, right? So the word gymnasium comes from the Greek word gymnos, which literally means naked. So when you say to your gym bro, hey man, I'll meet you at the gym, understand that the word gym is rooted in to be naked, because the ancient Greco-Romans, or more the Greeks, wrestled naked. It's not like today when you're going to the gym. You got the change room, you're going to get changed, get into your clothes. No, you strip down to nothing, and now you're going to wrestle naked with your gym bro. Okay? And so that's where the word gym comes from, gymnasium, to be naked. And when we read Plato, so Plato describes the practice of common meals and gymnasia for males with males, okay? And it's not just meals, okay? And it also says, or females with females. This daring deed seemed to be contrary to nature due to the inability to control pleasure. So when you go here, and you read all of this in Plato, the epicenter of this legally protected social bonding was the gymnasium. So we've gone over laws. They're protecting male on male sex, sex with adult males and little boys, and now you've got the gymnasium. Now, it is true there are laws in Solon's law that other men can't be with students unless their teacher is present. Okay, so it's not like a man can just go to the gymnasium and prey on little boys. That wasn't allowed. It can only be done in the presence of their mentor, the mentor who took them in, the mentor who has the right to have sex with him. All right, so at least that's there, I guess. So, but by the 4th century BC, the philosopher Plato recognized that the physical culture of these athletic centers was fostering rampant sexual behavior. So in his laws, Book 1, 636 B to C, Plato critiques these institutions for corrupting sexual ethics. Okay, and then the waste, so now to go even further, the waste of seed and procreation. Here, Plato explicitly defines the purpose of sexual union as procreation and condemns non-procreative acts as a waste of human potential. We should establish a law, he goes to say, that no one should dare to touch any of the noble and freeborn except for his own wedded wife, nor should he sow unholy and illegitimate seed in concubines, nor barren seed in males contrary to nature. Now, guys, if Plato's saying this shouldn't be allowed, and then we look at the Athenian laws that allow it, what that implies is, guys, this is happening. This is the norm in ancient Greece. And now Plato's coming along as a great reformer saying, guys, I think we need to tone it down. I think we're doing things wrong here. I think other nations are way more sophisticated than us and way less degenerate. Okay? Now this brings us to the Maccabean revolt. All right? So when we come to the Maccabean revolt, so now the Greeks have been ruling for maybe, 150 years, 160 years about. Oh no, I think we'll see exactly. Maybe it's 145. It's hard to say. Like, you don't really count when Alexander did it. There's some time after, right? So we're going to look at the decree of uniformity. So any nationalist, neopagan nationalist, who points at the ancient Greeks and goes, we're nationalists, we're going to fight for our nation and our right to be a nation, and the Greeks were so great, we have to be like the Greeks. It's like, dude, that's just a total contradiction. You can't be a neopagan nationalist and then point at the Greeks as your example. They were a one world, you do things our way, and we have sex with children kind of people, right? The neo-pagan nationalist who uses the Greeks and the Romans as their example, they need to stop what they're doing and just go join the gay pride parade. That's the greatest thing. That's the best way you can honor the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans, is just go to pride. Okay? I mean, the Romans were better. The Romans, look, the Romans, a Roman citizen couldn't be penetrated. You could penetrate non-Romans, though. That was legal. Like, if you're a Roman citizen and you're a male, you just couldn't be penetrated, and you couldn't penetrate another Roman male. But slaves and barbarians were totally, total goes. Like, you could have slave boys and do whatever you want to them. But you weren't allowed to be penetrated. I can't even believe... anyways, I'm talking about this. So this passage describes the Greeks' one world policy, which you might recognize as the dismantling of the cultural pluralism Cyrus the Great had established. So Cyrus the Great established every country has their own laws, their own kings, their own customs, all that stuff. And then here come the Greeks and go, no, you don't. One world, baby. So now here with the Maccabees, the passage describes the king wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people and all each should give up his customs. All the nations, the Gentiles, accepted the command of the king. Many, even from Israel, gladly adopted his religion. They sacrificed to idols and profane the Sabbath. So now we can see the great Greeks have come into Palestine, to Israel, to Judah, and the king writes a decree. He writes a law that everyone's going to speak one language, abandon their customs, their culture. We're going to be one people. Okay. So no, again, gymnasiums. Okay, we just covered that. So this existential threat to the covenant is exactly what triggered the Maccabean revolt. The author of First Maccabees directly connects the building of the Gymnasium to the total abandonment of Jewish law. And they built the Gymnasium, okay, in Jerusalem according to the custom of the nations of the Greeks, and they abandoned the Holy Covenant. Now, the Gymnasium was where you went to work out, to wrestle, and it was also like a school. It's where you went to learn. And that's where the little boys, the paists, and the mentors were. So not only are all the men wrestling naked, not only did Plato say that it's the epicenter of degeneracy, this is where all the male on male, female on female, whatever, but now, so when you read this in the Bible and you're just like, and now you know, like, the word gym means naked and what's really going on in the gymnasiums at that time, don't look at it like from our 21st century perspective, where it's like, well, why are the Jews so mad about a gymnasium? Don't you want to be in shape and just work out? That's not what was going on there, guys. Okay, so they built the gymnasiums. They went after the customs of the Greeks. What customs were that? What did we just go over? Okay, so there was such an extreme of Hellenism and an increase in the adoption of foreign ways, just like what's going on today, guys. We now have this surge of paganism coming back. That's what liberalism is. Okay, it's return to earth worship, self-worship, philosophy, spirituality. Forget God. God is within me, and maybe I'm a god myself. And now this leads to drugs, degeneracy, the breakdown of society. Okay, pointless wars. If there is one group of people that fought pointless war after pointless war, it was the Greeks. Okay. So even the priests were no longer intent upon their service at the altar, despising the sanctuary and neglecting the sacrifices. They hurried to take part in the unlawful proceedings in the wrestling arena. Okay. What did Plato say? That this daring deed seemed to be contrary to nature due to the inability to control pleasure, male on male. Guys, is there a law in the Torah? Because what is the Bible saying here? It's saying that they hurried to take part in the unlawful proceedings in the wrestling arena. Are there any laws in the Torah that say you can't wrestle and work out? No. What's really going on? What unlawful? It is against the law in the Bible for men to be together. Homosexuality is illegal. Now look, I don't want, if you're gay and you're watching me, I don't hate you for being gay. And I don't think I've ever really talked about this. I just assume people know my stance on that. We are all sinners. So you can point at the Bible and say, well, homosexuality carries the death penalty. Yeah, so does cheating on your wife. Okay, so does cheating on your husband. So does, lying about certain things can get you killed in the Torah. So pretty much almost every single person alive is guilty of breaking the Torah and probably should be punished with the death penalty. Almost all of us. Very few people have gone through life with the Torah, looking at the laws in the Torah. So just because it says a homosexual should be stoned to death. And also understand that the law is there for you to exercise. It's not mandatory. You can forgive someone. For instance, look at Joseph when Mary was pregnant. By all the laws of the Torah, Joseph should have had Mary executed. She obviously cheated on him and is carrying another man's baby in his head. Does Joseph say, I'm going to exercise my right and have her and the baby stoned to death? No, he chose to forgive her, understood what was going on, and said, when she gives birth, I'm going to quietly put her away and divorce her and let her and the baby live and go on their way. And it was only after Joseph made that decision that the messenger of God came to reveal to him that, hey, Mary didn't cheat on you. She's carrying the Son of God. And so mercy and forgiveness are always at the heart of the Torah. Even the Bible says that God never desired burnt offerings and sacrifice. He desired mercy and truth and justice. None of us are perfect. I deserve to be stoned to death. We all have our demons and our battles. And, I had a gay friend. His name was Jason. And I remember one day I asked him if he is ever going to go down to the gay district in Montreal. I was living in Montreal at the time. And he was a very smart intellectual guy. Very smart guy. He was actually Jewish. He was actually a Jew from Chicago living in New York. And I'll never forget how angry he got at me when I asked him if he, was going to go down to the village, we called it. And he actually, this is the only time he yelled at me. It was like offended. And he started blasting the LGBTQ movement. And then while he was blasting, like he's yelling at me. And he's like, understand something? He says, I am not your gay friend. I'm just your friend. I'm your friend. And what I do behind closed doors in my apartment is not your business. Okay? You and me are friends, and that's what we are. And I never want to hear I'm your gay friend, and I never want to hear, don't ever think I'm ever going to waste my life hanging out with those degenerates. And the anger and the hatred he had towards the LGBTQ movement, which I didn't know. I never came up. But here's a gay guy that I know. And he's a really smart guy. Like, this guy's a super genius when it comes to like literature and stuff like this, and history and stuff. And his sexuality never comes up. It's not something he talks about. He doesn't want to talk about it. It's none of our business. And so, I don't hate gay people, but I'm not going to support people who are going to push adultery, cheating on your husband and wives like it's a good thing, like it's good for society, and that everyone should be doing it. My friend Jason understood that homosexuality is not something that should be promoted as a social norm. Okay? He also doesn't think people should be persecuted for doing it. And so that's what I respected about him. He said sexuality is over here. And homosexuality has no place to be pushed, just like adultery has no place to be pushed. It doesn't mean kill that man because he cheated on his wife. Kill that guy because he's gay. Guys, there's going to be serious backlash for that. Okay? So if you are gay, I do not hate you. And just because the Bible says you should be killed, stoned to death, understand that Mary should have been stoned to death too. And yet Joseph forgave her. And that was when the messenger of God came. It was after, because at the heart of the Torah isn't stoning people to death. It's mercy and forgiveness. It's acknowledging all of us are sinners. All of us deserve death. Okay? But thankfully, mercy and forgiveness exist. But you can't run a country off homosexuality. You can't run a country promoting adultery. Okay? So understand, back to this. Sorry, that was a long rant. Anyways, so coming back to this, that's what's going on in the gymnasiums. Okay, so don't think it's like, yo, bro, the Bible's anti-working out. Not for me. No, that's not what's happening here. You're thinking of gyms in the 21st century, gyms in ancient Greece, whole different story. The abomination of desolation. Okay, so this describes the peak of Greek cultural imposition, the transformation of the Jewish temple into a Greek site. So on the 15th day of the month of Kislev in the 145th year from when the Seleucus they were living under the Syrian Greek Empire. They erected a desolating sacrilege upon the altar of burning offering, and they burned incense at the doors of the house, in the streets, and any book of the Torah, of the law they found, they tore to pieces and burned it with fire. So now what they've done is the Greeks have installed a statue of Zeus, a temple of Zeus. They've converted the temple of God into Zeus worship. Zeus, the pedophile, kidnapping children, raping them, raping women. Like, guys, think of that. The guy in the Orphic tradition who killed his father, raped his mother, had sex with his mother, then raped his daughter. Like, guys, this is Zeus. This is who the Greeks have replaced the God of the Bible with. At the same time, they're erasing the culture of the land. Okay? It gets worse. Mothers and children murdered. So the Greek only, elite circles didn't just ignore the native populations. They actively tried to cleanse them of any traits that didn't fit the Hellenistic mold. So according to the royal decree, they put to death the women who had circumcised their children. They hung the infants from their mothers' necks, and they also executed their entire families and the men who had performed the circumcisions. Apparently, they would kill the baby after being circumcised, and then they would chain the baby around the mother, and then they would I think they would actually walk her off a cliff. That was one version that I heard. So, I mean, any woman who tried to, and you could be for or against circumcision, I'm not here to argue that. The New Testament abolishes all that stuff. The people at the beginning of the Bible weren't circumcised. Circumcision is this tiny little window in history from Moses to the temple's destruction, like 1,500 years, and then where it was a law, and then it wasn't. Okay? So, but the point is that the people who did want to circumcise their sons to follow the covenant, these people were put to death. Okay? That's the Greeks. That's what the Greeks were doing. So that's what now brings to the resistance, the call to arms. This is the moment Matthias, the father of Judas Maccabeus, officially rejects Hellenism and calls for the overthrow of the Greek administration. Then Matthias cried out in the town with a loud voice, saying, "Let everyone who is zealous for the law and supports the covenant come out with me." And now they go into all-out civil war. It's not just Greeks versus Jews. It's like a mixed civil war. Any Greek that converted to I don't want to say Judaism, to Moses, because at this point there's no Pharisees really. They might be around actually, but they become a more prominent group later from this point. But they very well are here, I think. I don't think the Pharisees just emerged after. I think they are like Talmudic oral tradition people. I think they are around at this point. But a lot of Jews were Greeks, right? And so, yeah. And there was also, I missed that verse actually, but they built the Tyrian king, sorry, not the Tyrian king. They sent offerings to the god Hercules, the king of the high priest of Judea registered his Jewish people as Antiochian citizens. So it's a civil war going on with the Jews at this point. Some of the Jews wanted to be Greeks. So yeah, so now we're coming back to where the graveyard of empires, and that is this area here. Okay, that is Medo-Persia. And when the Greeks conquered it, so here's our map. Okay, Seleucus is ruling in this part here. He's got Babylon, he's got he's got Iraq, he's got Persia, and he's got Afghanistan. All right, he's doing good. All right, but guess what? Within 50 years, guys, 50 years, okay, of where he's actually officially ruling, their kingdom is ruling. while the Seleucids were busy fighting the Ptolemies. So now Greek civil war, the Greeks were so amazing, they couldn't stop killing each other. The Greeks in Egypt and the Greeks in Syria are now just killing each other, fighting over Jerusalem, fighting over Judea. They lost their two most important eastern provinces. So the Parthian breakaway in 247 BC, the Parni tribe, led by Arsaces, invaded the satrapy of Parthia. They created the Parthian Empire, which would eventually swallow the Seleucids whole. The Parthians are a mix of tribes, but they're also Scythians. Okay? So these guys, I know that a lot of these neopagans are very cursed, desert brown people. Understand the Scythians are described as having blondie red hair, blue eyes. They're very fair people. So the Parthians that are now taking Persia are northern tribes, and they would have been very white looking. Okay, so just because these neopagans are extremely racist, they're extremely anti-brown people, but Medo-Persia was very mixed, just like even Persians are today. Like Persians can look like anything. So now Parthia, this group is breaking away. Why? They don't like the Greek custom. They don't like the Greek culture. They don't like any of that stuff. So now the Greco-Bactrian kingdom, so this is more towards Afghanistan, the satrapy Diodotus declared independence in modern-day Afghanistan, cutting the Seleucids off from the Silk Road wealth to the Far East. So now they're cutting off all the trade to China. They're striking these guys where it hurts, okay? And now what also happens, there is a Greek settlement, like a Greek Siberia in the corner, and this whole Greek province now is going to get completely cut off from the rest of the Greeks, separated now by the Parthians, and then they're going to have the Indians to the south, and they're going to have the Chinese to the east. And guess what happens to these Greeks? They get absorbed by the Chinese. An entire province of Greeks get absorbed into China. So you now have this Greek blood being mixed into the Chinese empire of its time. The Maccabean. So now this is the Maccabean revolt, which we just covered. Okay, so Antiochus Epiphanes tried to forcibly Hellenize Judea to unify his shrinking empire. The Jewish revolt led by Judas Maccabeus successfully carved out an independent Hasmonean kingdom. The Seleucids lost a strategic land bridge between their Syrian capital and their holdings in Egypt/Palestine. Then they lose Mesopotamia in 141 to 129 BC. Now they're going to lose. So Mithridates I of Parthia captured Seleucia. They started their own capital on the Tigris, and then they also took Babylon. Mesopotamia was the economic heart of the empire. Without the tax revenue from the Tigris and the Euphrates, the Seleucids were reduced to a kingdom of Syria. The final stand, 129 BC, Antiochus VII, the last truly capable Seleucid king, launched a massive counteroffensive to retake the east. He was killed in an ambush by the Parthians. After this, the Seleucids never campaigned east of the Euphrates again. Keep in mind, though, guys, that while all this is going on in the east, the Parthians and the Greeks are fighting, the Romans are coming in from the other side. So a lot of the Greeks' failures in the east had to do with the Romans are coming in. And that the Seleucids lost a lot of major battles back home in Greece, in Turkey. So this is just covering what's going on in the east, but I just want you to know that even though the Parthians are smashing them to pieces in the east, keep in mind that the Romans are coming from the west, right? So that's a big reason too why their forces are scattered. They are bleeding their men in Judea, they're bleeding their men fighting the Romans, and they're bleeding their men in Parthia, in Medo-Persia, right? But it doesn't matter. So this is the Parthian Empire. It's not the Persian. They're Persians in a sense, but they're Parthian. They're united through the Aramaic language. It includes, again, Iraq, Afghanistan, right? Iraq, Afghanistan. This is Parthia. Where are we today? Where are we today? We're in Parthia. Isn't that odd? Isn't that interesting, guys? That the countries we have died and bled, bankrupted our economies, destroyed our countries, trying to take what is it? It's ancient Parthia. Okay? And the difference was back then they were united, more or less. Today they're divided. If these people ever unite, now backed by Chinese technology, Russian technology, which is what's happening right now. Right now, North Korea, China, and Russia are all supporting Iran. And Iran is doing an amazing job. And we are bankrupt. We are completely destroyed and betrayed, and we are in a lot of trouble. And we're going to talk about this more in the next video, the curses of Moses. But my point here is, when the Parthians came and removed all the Greeks, and now the Parthians are here, they're going to play a major role in the Bible story. The Magi, the wise men who came from Parthia. And understand that every single Roman that marched beyond the Euphrates, every single Roman either returned in humiliating defeat or never returned at all. Okay? So, and now what have we seen? The same with us. We are repeating the same mistakes as the ancient Greeks, as the ancient Romans. Not only are we repeating military, fighting pointless, stupid wars that make no sense to us and don't benefit us at all. At all. Okay? Even if you were to say, well, we needed their resources. Guys, we spent trillions of dollars. Do you think they've got trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars worth of resources? Do you think they got $40 trillion worth of resources? No. We're $40 trillion in debt. To who? That's the worst part. When you find out who we're actually indebted to, think of how stupid we are. We borrowed money. And now we have to pay back, 3 or 4 times that amount back. We borrowed money to go kill people so corporations could get rich and bankers could get rich. And now, after we went and blew up all these people, because we were told we were attacked, right? And now it's like if I told you, I need you to go kill that guy. You're going to go kill that guy for me, but you're going to borrow money from my friend and, borrow 50 grand from my friend, then go kill that person. And then you're going to pay my friend back $200,000 over the next 30 years. Would you do that if I asked you, go kill someone for me, but borrow money to do it and then pay that guy back for me? Or would you think that's crazy? Because that's exactly what we did. Except now, the people who we borrowed the money from, it's like China. Anyways, we'll talk about this in the next video. It's the curses of Moses. That's what it is. All right, guys. So that's Hellenism. One world, one culture. So we're just repeating history right now. History is rhyming again. We're making the same mistakes. We're no different than the ancient Greeks. We are degenerates. We are pushing pedophilia. We're pushing sexual degeneracy. We're trying to conquer the world, spread our democracy. And everything's falling apart. All right. So So yeah, I think we're going to end there. And again, guys, support, give, send, go. Everything will be in the description. And if you want to see more content, think about becoming a monthly donor. If anything happens, you can find me on Odysee, Instagram, Twitter, or Telegram. And that's it. So we're going to end there, and we're going to continue with the fall of the West and the curses of Moses. And then after, I'm going to go over the book, talk about the book and go over what the book's about, the nativity, and all that kind of stuff. All right, guys. So I think we're going to end there. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. And yeah, I hope you guys are well.